There are two critical pieces of digital photography that I wish I knew when I started 20 years ago. And these two things don't even have anything to do with pressing the shutter button. They are having an efficient organization system, one that makes sense to you, that you can scale, that you start using on day one. And then the second is properly storing your photos and backing them up. If I had just followed these two things, it would have saved me a lot of headache and, frankly, a lot of heartbreak. Because I used to just copy photos from my camera over to my laptop. I knew kind of where they were. I thought they were safe there until one day they weren't. And I lost a lot of photos that I'll never get back. So I want to take you through some of these steps that you can identify weak areas in your system so that you can fix those right now and have one that works and one that you're going to stick with for however long you are pressing that shutter button. So let's first talk about storage devices. Now, I know some of you are guilty of this because I've talked to you. This is not a storage location. Okay, the SD in SD card does not stand for storage device. These are just little tiny flimsy pieces of plastic, and they should not be holding your invaluable, irreplaceable photos as like a permanent solution. I know they're cheap. I know they're small. I know they can have a lot of storage capacity these days, but they can be lost really easily. They're really easy to break and bend and whatnot. So you can think of them as like temporary holding locations for your photos until you can get your pictures copied over to somewhere that is more appropriate. Now, where is that more appropriate storage location? Well, I'd really discourage you from using your computer, either a desktop or a laptop, as your permanent photo storage location. I know these hard drives are getting huge these days, but you're eventually going to fill it up if you're taking a lot of pictures. And it's really nice to just have everything in one location so you're not having to jump around between different storage folders or different storage devices. So I'd really encourage you to start off by using something like this as your daily photo storage device. This is an external SSD, solid state storage device. They are quite a bit more expensive than any other storage solution. However, they are very fast. They're really good to work on photos because of their speed. They're reliable. They can take a lot more abuse than the old-fashioned spinning platter type hard drives that we'll get to in just a minute. But I'd really recommend that you invest in something like this from the beginning, and this is where you're going to hold all of your photos for daily use. Now, I did mention those mechanical hard drives, the HDDs. These are much more affordable, but they are slow. They're just a little more on the fragile side, so you do have to be careful with where you store them, but it's a great solution for long-term storage of all of your backups. And then I do just want to mention cloud storage really quick. A lot of photographers are starting to use cloud storage more and more. I wouldn't recommend using the cloud for your daily working photos just because it does require an internet connection. It does require at least some sort of proxy file to be located on your computer. Cloud storage is great for backup. I use cloud storage for backup. So let's just quickly summarize these different types of storage locations really quick. For daily use, I'd really recommend using an SSD external hard drive. These are great for their reliability and speed. Your memory card is just a temporary location. It should not serve as any kind of permanent storage location. Then you have the old-fashioned spinning platter type hard drives that make great backup locations. And then you also have the cloud as another backup option. Now that you kind of know your options for where you might want to store your photos on a more permanent basis, it's time to come up with the how. Where and how are you going to organize all of these folders and all of these files? This should be something that's simple. It makes sense to you now. It'll make sense to you 2, 5, or 10 years from now. And this is how I look at it. If you are a photographer who shoots events, your photography is largely based around dates. So your folder organization system could have a year as the top folder for all of your photos. Within that year, you have all of the different months. And then within each month folder, you have a folder for each event that is named by the day of that month and then the event name. Now you can find that event so long as you remember what month that event was in. It's really easy to go back and find it. For me, I am a travel documentary photographer. So my photography is based more on the where instead of the when. So for my folders, they're all organized by country. And then within those country folders, my subfolders are organized by other locations within that country, like the state, the county, or the province. And if it's a location that I photograph a lot, even getting down to like the city or locations within a city. And then I organize those by year that that location was shot. So if you don't already have a system like this that makes sense to you for what you do, go ahead and take a minute and come up with that kind of system. And again, ask yourself this question. Am I a photographer who bases my photography more on the when, the what, or the where? And that will dictate how you set up your folder organization system. The nice thing about having a system that makes sense to you like this is that it'll work in whatever photo editing or processing software that you're using. Lightroom, Capture One, Photo Mechanic, you can find your photos no matter what you're using. So now that you have that all set up, let's actually talk about getting the photos into those folders. What you should not be doing is plugging your SD card into your computer and then just dragging the files into those folders. There is so much that you can do to automate this process and add things like metadata, copyright info, keywords, automatically rename all of those files. This type of automation can be done in all sorts of different post-processing and editing programs like Photo Mechanic, Lightroom, and Capture One. I'm partial to Photo Mechanic, and I have a bunch of other videos and articles about how I use Photo Mechanic. But there's so much that I do to automate this entire organization process. So when I have photos that I'm ready to import, all I need to do is choose my main upper root directory folder, and then I can have it automatically create subfolders based on the locations that I was in, and have it automatically create dated subfolders within that location folder. I can create naming templates so that I can automatically rename all of those files by the location or the event if you're an event photographer, and then the date that photo was created. That is all automatically done using these variables. I can create metadata templates that have keywords that are appropriate for the photos that I'm importing. I can have all of my copyright and contact information. And all of that is automatically done for me when I import the photos from the SD card. So it's an investment of a few minutes up front when you're importing the photos that can really save you hours on the back end. And don't forget about your database files. If you're working in a program that creates a database, like Photo Mechanic Plus or Capture One or Lightroom Classic, that database should also be stored in a secure location and backed up. I said that I store all of my photos on an external hard drive and encouraged you to do the same. I actually keep my database files on my computer. And I do that because there is a little bit of a speed advantage by having those on your computer. And they are stored within my Dropbox folder on my computer so that the second I make any changes to that database file, it's automatically backed up to the cloud. So let's recap these first 3 important steps for what to do after you press the shutter button. The first thing is to make sure that you have a reliable storage location for all of those photos to live on. The second thing is to make sure that you have an organization system, a folder structure that makes sense to you now, that'll make sense to you later, is simple, and that you start using from day one. And then the third thing is to let all of these programs like Photo Mechanic and Lightroom Classic do all of the automation and the heavy lifting, creating these folders for you, adding metadata for you, and renaming all of the files automatically with whatever system you decide to use. Those are the first 3 steps. If you want to go even deeper into these topics, they're the first 3 free preview lessons in my After the Capture course. The next lesson is all about coming up with a backup strategy so that your photos are safe and you'll never lose any of those memories. If you want to check out more free previews from that course, you can find it at photocourses.link/AC. You can save 20% on that course with the code TUBE20. Let me know if you have any questions or comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe for more great tips like this every week, and we'll see you in the next video.